Manjaro is the most requested Linux distribution to review. I installed it on my computer, tested it for about a week, then I updated it, and this is what I got. It is Manjaro review by average Linux user. Manjaro is often called a user-friendly Arch. I am well familiar with Arch Linux system. It is the main OS on my home computer. So as an Arch Linux user, my review will be a little subjective. Also, I will review Manjaro with KDE desktop, because as you already know, I use Arch Linux with Plasma 5 on my computer. So this way, I will be able to make a direct comparison between the two systems. Let's have a look at some details. Is Manjaro indeed a user-friendly distribution? Personally, I never understood the concept of Manjaro. If you want a user-friendly Linux, go for Linux Mint or some other truly user-friendly distributions. If you want the bleeding edge distribution, install Arch Linux. I doubt one can make a user-friendly distribution with the cutting-edge software, and I will try to prove my point. Manjaro indeed has some elements of user-friendliness. There is a nice graphical interface, the whole installation process took only 6 minutes, and right after that I had a ready-to-use system. When you log in the first time, you are presented with a really good welcome screen. Manjaro contains many really good packages installed by default. To my surprise, almost all these packages are my favorite, and I install them in my Arch Linux. Unlike in Arch Linux, everything is pre-configured in Manjaro. Even my wireless mouse was showing the battery status right after the installation. Manjaro is just outstanding with its green theme. It is really beautiful. My favorite Plasma 5 theme was actually the default Breeze theme, but after using Manjaro, I am thinking about changing my Breeze theme now. Octopi is a package manager, and it is a graphical package manager. Its interface is not super user-friendly, but it is still less scary for new users than the command line. There is also a simple and informative user guide. So my first impression was, wow, it is a really great Linux distribution, and it seems to be a user-friendly Arch. But later on, problems started to appear. But before I dive into these problems, consider subscribing and activate the bell notification so you will never miss the next video. This reminded me my first experience with Manjaro Linux. I tried Manjaro for the first time in 2015. It was exactly the same experience as this time. I was impressed and happy right after the installation. But after several updates, I started noticing some problems. I had occasional freezes and glitches. And at some point, Manjaro just failed to load the graphical interface. It was quite a while ago and I don't remember what was the problem, but I remember that I decided to sit down and finally install Arch Linux in Archway. I am using Arch Linux as my main home OS since then. So almost the same happened to me this time. First, after a week of use, a fresh installation of Manjaro, I updated my system. There was a kernel update among a few hundred other updates. So I rebooted my system after it updated. And this is what I got. It was like deja vu. After I investigated the problem, I figured out that it was related with my dual boot of Manjaro and Arch Linux. It seems Manjaro doesn't like any other bootloader except its own. If you Google Manjaro kernel panic unable to mount rootfs unknown block, you will find the solution. Basically, I edited my group configuration of Arch Linux to have this custom menu to boot Manjaro. After that, everything worked fine. I admit the dual booting Manjaro with any other distribution is not a typical use scenario, and it won't be fair to say it was a major fault of Manjaro. But come on, I dual boot many distros with my Arch Linux to test them, and I have never had a problem like this. However, the problems did not stop there. I created this review in Manjaro, so when I was drafting the scenario of this video, LibreOffice froze several times, and the mouse wheel stopped working occasionally, so I had to scroll the old way, with this crowbar. I did my first upgrade of Manjaro through the terminal interface, but in the second time I used the Octopi graphical interface to upgrade, and it just got stuck, so I had to kill it. There was a problem with group update, so maybe it is related with my dual boot configuration, but upgrading through the terminal worked fine. So, not good. Speaking about Octopi, I was surprised the AUR was not added by default. I assumed it was available by default before, and you only had to activate it as it was shown in this forum thread. But now there is no AUR tab in the settings anymore. I had to figure out that you need to install some AUR helpers first to get this AUR menu in Octopi. I installed Pakur, and only after that I saw this AUR menu. Manjaro website seems to recommend Yai. Is it the correct way to pronounce it? I don't know. I installed it, but it would not appear in the Octopi options. So with Yai, you need to use the command line only. Next I had to figure out how to search AUR packages. After I enabled the AUR, I still was not able to find any AUR package by typing its name in the search bar. Only after a while I found this button that enables search in the AUR. I don't know, maybe I'm stupid, but it doesn't look very intuitive. So I believe many new users may find it really difficult to get access to the AUR packages in Manjaro. There are also many smaller pros and cons I could talk about, but to keep this video short, I will mention only few of them. For example, Manjaro settings. I appreciate the effort of the Manjaro team to make it. I especially like the user-friendly option to control your kernel version. But it is redundant with the Plasma 5 settings. You can find the same options here. Why do they keep it in a separate program isn't clear for me. The same applies to printer settings. There is a dedicated printer configuration app, which reminds me GNOME Printer app. And I also can find KDE printer settings. I don't have any printer at home to test these two apps, but I have been using KDE printer settings at work for many years, with different printers, and it always worked fine. So I find this redundancy really confusing for new users. On the positive side, I like Manjaro provides links to Microsoft Office Online viewers. I personally have to use Microsoft viewers when someone sends me a complex document in docs format and it doesn't look correct in LibreOffice. Similarly, the link to Skype Online is also provided. Though you can install Skype from the AUR. The last update of Skype for Linux made Skype really decent to use on Linux. Manjaro is a bleeding edge, and bleeding edge programs are not for new users. Manjaro is claimed to be more tested than Arch Linux because Manjaro performs some additional testing before releasing the updates. But it is still a short period of testing, and it is impossible to find all bugs. For example, there are a few bugs which annoy me in Arch Linux and make me seriously think to switch from Arch Linux to probably Debian, but it is a topic for another video. These bugs are present in Manjaro too. For example, if you go to GIMP and use the tool to pick the color from the screen, it won't work. This bug has just been fixed in Manjaro and Arch Linux during my work on this review, but it was out there for several months, and it annoyed me a lot. This can be really discouraging for new users. So I would give Manjaro 4 stars. It has many features of a user-friendly distro. It may look and feel great at the beginning, but eventually you will face some issues with it, and fixing them may not be easy. There are no many places to search for solution beyond the Manjaro forum. The Arch Linux forum is not friendly for new users, and many solutions which work for Arch Linux will not work for Manjaro. Manjaro is based on Arch Linux, but it is not Arch Linux. I think Manjaro could be a good start to start learning the Arch Linux system, but I think Antergos is much better in this regard. It is closer to Arch Linux. I also know many of my viewers use and like Manjaro, and probably they won't like this review, But this is how my experience was. So what was your experience with Manjaro? Please share it in the comment section. And thank you for watching.